Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on episode 10, season 4 of The Standoff with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're here live on Wednesday on Facebook throughout the season. Richie is not here right now. He's running a bit late, so I'll do my little greeting to Paul instead. Evening, Paul. How are you going?
Evening, I'm fine, and I see how you want to be the main man and just belittle me in the corner.
Yeah,
exactly. Oh, dearie me.
And for our shtick at the end of the show, I almost called you Simon too. So,
I can be Richie, the favorite, the housewife's favorite for the start of the show.
Exactly. So while we're here live on Wednesday evenings at 8 p.m, you can also catch our show via the podcast at iHeartRadio, Spotify, all those places. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to cover everything you need to know in the week that was rugby league, including our top stories of the week, a review of round 7, and an update of our tips. We'll then stop and answer some questions from you guys, as well as some questions we got for each other, before previewing round 8 and making our picks, and then ending with Super League. So it should be a good show, and I think Richard's here too, isn't he, Paul?
Yeah, but Richie, you just look how Brad wants to be the main man now, and he's the talent. Where does the sideshow bulbs?
Hey, that's what I am. That's what I am. That's what I am.
It's the standoff with Brad and Richie, not the standoff with Richie and Brad. You know. So how was your weekend, Richie? Before we move on.
Weekend was good. Thanks, Brad. Hope yours is good too. I'm currently, most of my family's ditched me, and it's just myself and my little Hurricane 3-year-old right now. So my weekend was better than what my today is. Hence why I've just rushed in right now, and wouldn't recommend.
Just get a cage.
Yeah.
That's all you need. But we may as well jump straight into the top stories of the week. First one, I said Paul can jump on this too, because it's a serious issue for all sports, I guess. But there was a bit of hair pulling in the weekend, Richie. Obviously, Tyson Frizzell pulled Jerome Luai's hair. Gordon Tallis lost his mind about it, probably due to the fact that he hasn't been able to grow hair for a couple of decades, and saying that Jerome should just cut his hair. Now, and he had some good points in there upon the old man screaming at the clouds, but he said, like, Frizzell wasn't going for the hair, he was going for the jersey, and the hair got in the way, which happens with long hair. And I think the penalty was a bit harsh. I know penalties for deliberate hair pulls should be around. We've even seen that, I think last year. Was it last year with Leiloa, I think, got his hair pulled.
Yeah.
But I think this one where it's an accidental, and you can clearly see it was accidental when Luai didn't blow up about it, I think there should have been a little bit better. And Christopher said it thought it was disgusting. To be honest, just braid it or put it up. Yeah, put it in a nice little ponytail like I've got right now, because I didn't want my hair getting pulled tonight. So what's your take on it as the two short-haired individuals on the show?
If I were the referee or one of the officials, thankfully I'm not, I would have said play on. They had the benefit of looking back at the footage, and he's grabbed around the jersey region. He hasn't gone in to try and grab a bunch of hair. It's just Luai's got a bunch of hair hanging down in the way.
Come on, Paul.
It's interesting, isn't it? I don't understand why players have big, bushy, long hair anymore. Because a bit like one of these ones I've discussed with. It's obviously a sensitive topic, because I was actually in media at the women's Super Rugby. I said, look, why do women have the long hair? I mean, in these and also big beards as well. For I understand why props do, but other players. I mean, in this kind of
I'm feeling attacked here, Paul.
In this era of marginal games where you're obviously getting hot, you need to cool down. The more hair you've got, the more facial hair you've got, the more you're going to heat up, right? So by having it shaved off, having shorter hair is actually from a performance point of view is better. Look, deliberate hair pulling should be penalised. Absolutely. I didn't see this incident. I've seen a picture of it, and I was kind of like, "Oh, that's disgusting pulling hair. You shouldn't be." But if it was an accident, but then again, look, tackle properly. Why the hell are you grabbing people's jerseys? Put your shoulder in, get a proper tackle on. None of this grabbing people's jerseys is. They should all be wearing. Perhaps we should just have you should be a team for life. Have your jersey tattooed on, and no jerseys at all. So then you can't grab jerseys. That's my answer for it.
I wouldn't like that myself. It feels like I've got a jersey tattooed if I'm wearing one. But yeah, yeah. I am first. I won't take offense to your sticks at people with beards and long hair. But yeah, like Mark Roberts has kind of said there, it's really hard for me to be unbiased on this because I don't like Luai, and it's probably the closest thing we're going to get to someone. Punch him in the face, which is what he deserves at the moment with his attitude. But and see, Simon disagrees with you, Paul, about beards.
I'm not saying they're not manly, and I get that. No, I'm talking about from a performance point of view that should give you a hot face, right? It doesn't let the sweat get away, and it'll become a soggy mess, a sort of soggy mat that weighs down your face if you're not careful, depending on how big your beard is.
That's why I'm the weight I am. It's because of my beard. So I'll take that. But yeah, Graham Ellsey, he was asked about, and he basically didn't want to make an opinion. He kind of just said the refs were in trouble either way. So he did re-specify though that the penalty is for a deliberate hair pull, which I didn't think this was. But yeah. Interesting to see. We'll see this week if Luai's, done his hair up all pretty or not. But yeah, next bit of news. I wanted to kind of be a bit nicer to the Tigers this week, so I don't think I've got them, but I'm going at the Dragons again, Richie.
Surprise, surprise.
The Dragons decided that they didn't want to play by the rules, and they named Jacob Little to start at hooker in the weekend just gone, an hour before kickoff, which is the last time you can make changes. And then they decided to start Moses Mbye instead. You're meant to get an interchange deducted for that, but they didn't get one deducted and used all 8 interchanges during the game. Graham Ellsey came out and said that it's done now. But Andrew Abdo will be looking into it to see if there is going to be a further punishment for the breaking of the rules. It could be a fine, or it could just be a warning. So as of an hour ago, when I was checking up on news again, there was no word either way. But what's your take on that? It seems like a very amateurish kind of thing for an NRL team to do by mistake.
It does, doesn't it? If they've breached the rules, which it looks like they did, then there should be some sort of consequences. I knew you would say that. I'd probably be fine with a fine of sorts, given that they already lost the game anyway and missed the 2 points, which is a good result anyway for you if you're Brad. So I think I'd be all right with a fine.
Yeah, Mark's asked the question, so should they lose an interchange this week? That would be an interesting punishment as well, to say you only get 7 this week. I don't think they're going to get anything. I think it'll just be a don't do it again, please.
Yeah, they lost the game.
Yeah, but yeah, I just wanted to mention that because I thought it was funny. Next bit, Richie's favourite commentator, Blocker Roach. He hit out at Ed Cossey this week for staying down after it looked like Cossey got a high shot. But then as soon as the Warriors got a penalty, he jumped up and was right as rain. He said he was milking it. It needs to be eliminated from the game. We've talked about it a bit about milking before. I still stick with if you get a penalty for a high shot, take the player off for an HIA and then you will eliminate milking because no one's going to want to go off unless they're desperate for an interchange that they don't have, I guess. But what's your take?
I just find it interesting. He picked out Ed Cossey.
You really is that surprised?
Not really, but if you look at a weekend worth of rugby league, you could pick out at least a dozen of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just adding evidence to what people already think, that he hates the Warriors.
I want to give Blocker some credit, though. In the commentary I've had to listen to from him this year, he has stopped saying that the Warriors are looking tired. So, yeah, that shows some form of growth, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, it's as I said, I think to eliminate milking, you've got to bring in things like an HIA, and that should stop some of it. I don't think it was that bad, but unfortunately, sometimes you have to lie down a bit longer to actually get a penalty.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that bad.
No.
I don't really like one of our players doing it, but every other team does it, so to gain an advantage. So would we be missing the boat if we didn't do it?
It was a winger. Your wingers are allowed to do it, They're usually the softest in the team. So we'll go with that. No offense, Cossie will come beat me up. Don't want that. And then next bit of news, we'll go to the Raiders. I know there's no game for them this week, so we've got to talk about them at some point. But Jack Whiten's announced his retirement from rep footy, saying that winning the World Cup was a fitting way to end, and he wants to focus on winning a premiership and spending more time with his family. There's been lots of rumours and stuff in there about he was upset that he didn't get picked in the last game of Origin and rah-rah. That's all just rumours, though. I'm just going with the quote that he said. What's your take on Whiten? He did pretty well for your New South Wales team in game 1 last year. Obviously had COVID game 2 and then didn't get picked game 3. But yeah, I thought he was probably their best player on game 1.
Yeah, for sure. As a New South Wales supporter, it's a bummer because he does do well in that arena, and he's kind of built for it. As a number 14 coming off the bench, he's pretty much ideally suited to it because he covers a number of positions really well, runs hard, tackles hard. But that's his choice. I don't know what he's going to do contract-wise going forward if he wants to concentrate on trying to win a premiership. I don't want to offend Simon, but yeah, he might want to move if he wants to win a premiership.
Well, to be brutally honest, at the moment they were talking Raiders or Dolphins. There's rumors that the Rabbitohs might be interested too.
Yeah.
But I don't see the Raiders or the Dolphins winning a premiership in the next couple of years.
Where do the Rabbitohs fit him in if they were to sign him?
Centre,
maybe the other centre across from Campbell Graham on the other side. I don't know because Cody seems to have the number 6 sewn up. Latrell obviously has got the fullback spot.
Yeah,
it
would have to be centre. Because everywhere else, if you want to throw them at lock, they've already got a pretty handy one there.
Yeah, only the best.
Yeah, the halves are sorted. Fullback. So it'd have to be centre.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I'm sure we're going to get news on that later on in the season when there's a decision made, so we can talk about it there. Just a little one, just interesting. Trent Robinson's made a big call and dropped Sam Walker to reserve grade this year. Or this week, not this year. What's your take on that? I know you were a big fan of the Roosters in our preseason prediction. Do you like Walker getting dropped, or has he just been a scapegoat?
I think a little bit of it is he's a scapegoat. If you've watched their games, I don't think he's been particularly bad. I think it's been probably the team as a whole with errors and really poor discipline that's been letting them down. So I do feel like he's a little bit of a scapegoat there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but he's young. Getting dropped to reserve grade, it's not hurting his career or anything.
Yeah,
I'm sure he'll bounce back from it. Not too much because I don't want you to win the prediction this year. So we'll move on from that and go into the match review committee. I found some stats which I thought was interesting. There were some stats from last year's first 7 rounds to this year in terms of charges. So in 2022, there were 41 charges in the first 7 rounds. And in 2023, there's been 73 charges. And these are just the charges that were either found guilty or had an early guilty plea. I know the NRL have come out and said there's been no changes to the guidelines, but it's a big jump for no reason. Really, I suppose you've got a lot of hip drops now, but what's your take on that? I think there was a sin binning stat that I forgot to write down, and the sin binnings have gone through the roof as well, and the sin binnings were bad last year too.
Yeah, it's hard for me to sit back and listen to them say they haven't had any changes in what they're ruling on this year. When you see the amount of hip drops, it's way more than last year. It seems like that's the flavor of the week for the officials. So, yeah, it's been pretty crazy so far. It's taking me back to the high tackle crackdown around Magic Round a couple of years ago, where they just went crazy with the sin bins. It feels like that at the moment. It's just they seem very trigger happy on the sin bins.
Yeah, and Mikey said it's revenue gathering. I did forget, to write down they had the value as well, like how much money and charges they had in the first 7 rounds last year compared to this year. It was a significant jump. So yeah, it's helping them buy the next Bugatti, I guess, for Graham and Andrew. So yeah. Well, I guess if you go by the trajectory, first 7 rounds next year, we should be looking at 100. I don't know if it keeps going the way it's going. So tune back in a year's time to see what we say about it then. But since we talked about him, we may as well keep going with Graham because he loves talking about the games. He actually revealed that Penrith could have won Saturday night's Golden Point thriller against Newcastle in regulation time, admitting that the referee would have been within his rights to award a rare 3-point field goal. Because obviously the Panthers were trailing by 1 with a couple of minutes ago. Cleary got the field goal to even the scores, but he was taken out by Lachlan Fitzgibbon, which caused a little bit of a scuffle, but there was no penalty for it. But he was saying that should have been a penalty in his belief, and let them win. What's your take on that?
I didn't think there was a lot in it. I just thought Nathan Cleary's chin got in the way.
Yeah, God, that's a bit harsh, mate. But yes, I think there's a bit of leeway. Like it's a game-changing situation where you're trying to stop a guy doing a field goal, so you're trying to charge. There wasn't much in it.
His arm brushed him. I think there was an element of milking there too. Maybe I'm just being cynical, but
yeah. But flowing on from that, heaps of the media in Australia, they obviously really love the Knights, but they're saying there need to be changes to the Golden Point because it was unfair that the Knights got no points for that game when they didn't even get a chance to hold the ball in Golden Point. To be honest, I'm happy with it to stay the same. If you can't win in 80 minutes, I put it like boxing or UFC. If you can't stop the fight in your own and you leave it to the judges in the end, it's completely your fault if you lose, and that's how I see overtime. There is going to be a chance where you go up against a team that just refuses to let you touch the ball. Defend better, stop them from getting close enough. It's fair to say the Knights' defense in that drive wasn't the best. But what do you think? Would you like to see changes? I know Buzz had this big multi-faceted thing where you got 4 points for a win and all this. No.
I didn't like that. I didn't like what Buzz was proposing. I'm happy with status quo, to be honest. If a game goes to Golden Point, I don't know, I find it exciting teams having a shootout for a field goal. The other argument is just take it out and just go with the draw. And another suggestion I've heard is make it golden try. So if you want to kick a field goal and go ahead on the scoreboard, go for it. But the game doesn't stop unless you score a try.
That's similar to the NFL model, which is what a lot of people are looking at. So if you go into overtime in the NFL and you kick a field goal, the other team gets one drive to either to win the game after that. But if you score a touchdown, it's game over. So in that same scenario, if Nathan Cleary, instead of doing a field goal, dummied a field goal and flicked it out to Taruva and they scored, it would still be a win without the Knights touching the ball.
Yeah.
What about Simon's idea here that actually both teams get 1 point and the golden point scorer gets an extra point?
So then you rugby union, Paul, and you're giving people points for losing. I don't like it.
Yeah, that's what I don't like.
Yeah, but
you
they're
win the game or you don't.
At the end of the game, aren't they?
Well, no, because the team won at the end in golden point. But yeah, like Jacob said, a draw is a draw. The golden point stuff is a marketing tool. It makes it exciting, I guess, to that point. But yeah, I don't know. I know there's never going to be a solution that makes everybody happy.
Yeah.
And how many times have we seen teams that we thought, that was a bit hard done by, but we've already seen this year teams that haven't been able to win in golden point and get a draw. So yeah, I don't know. They'll keep talking about it, and they'll probably never change it. So
yeah.
Next bit of news. This is very new, Richie. So this wasn't given to you in the show notes, but there's plans in place for New Zealand to have their own version of the Australians Prime Minister's team, with a second national team proposed as part of a revamped pathway for New Zealand. I grabbed the whole lot, so I'm just going to cherry pick out of it. But it's a model the Australians use. England always use it as well with the England Knights. And Michael Maguire, who's just signed on again as Kiwis coach, is backing it. They believe that this side could play internationals against Pacific Islanders and even take on the Australian Prime Minister's team, with most of the squads being made up of uncapped test players alongside more experienced players not required in the full Kiwi squad. My response is actually very similar to what Christopher's just put. In addition to the return of the junior Kiwis, which haven't played since before COVID, they believe it's potentially a way to get New Zealand players, around 75 New Zealand players, playing international style games every year. The Greg Peters, the NZRL CEO, said it's not likely to happen this year, but it is part of their plans. Like I've said, like Christopher said, I want them to get games for the Kiwis first before we start talking about, having a junior Kiwis top side and a Prime Minister's team trying to get games. We can't even get Australia, the Kangaroos, to play the Kiwis. So how are we going to get them? Because I know their Prime Minister's team, they love taking it to Papua New Guinea. Why would they go, instead of going to Papua New Guinea, we'll play you guys? I just don't. I like the idea as an idea, but I think it's a long way off. You've got to actually get internationals back first.
Yeah.
But what's your take?
I don't see it as a priority over internationals. I'm like you. I'm like all you guys commenting. I'd just love to see more Kiwis games. More Kiwis versus Kangaroos. More Kiwis versus the Pacific Island teams. More of that. Yeah,
and like Christopher said, Australia need to move state of origin to consecutive weekends so England can tour New Zealand, vice versa. They're never going to do it though. But like that one where they had it in the weekend, Richie, and we had, we had like Fiji playing, Tonga playing, New Zealand playing. That was like a great weekend of footy. But it's not that prime time viewing on a Wednesday night that state of origin likes to do. But I still think you could do the same time. You could do like New Zealand, Tonga, do like a series the same night as Origin. But then they don't want to lose their Origin players that play for Tonga, and so it's a mess. But we'll see what happens. We talked a few weeks ago about the Four Nations potentially coming back this year. We've heard nothing more on that yet, so let's focus on that first. And hopefully get some footy. And like Simon said, it's a ratings thing. That's why it's on Wednesdays. But it is what it is.
They can still play those on 3 consecutive Wednesdays. They don't, do they? There's always a week gap or a 2-week gap.
Yeah, it's more than 2 weeks. I think there is a bit of a gap. Yeah, but time will tell. I'm sure we'll get more news about that. So we'll move on to signings, Richie. Not a lot of men's signings, but a handful of the NRLW. But the Eels have re-signed Brendan Hands until the end of 2025. Will Kennedy has signed another 2 years to stay with the Sharks. And the Dolphins have extended Connolly Lemulu. I get his name wrong all the time.
Lemuelu.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Until the end of 2025. I think all good signings. Brendan Hands has really been playing well since he's kind of started the last few weeks getting to play first grade. Connolly has been really good for the Dolphins, especially with the likes of Kafusi out. And Will Kennedy is a must-have for the Sharks, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, and then the NRLW, we've got a couple. Emma Tongigato has signed with the Sharks for 2 years. Massive deal. She's a fantastic player. Ben Murdoch-Masilla's wife, Roxy, has been announced to join the Dragons, which isn't much of a surprise since her husband plays for the Dragons. The Raiders have signed Mackenzie Wickie, obviously the daughter of Ruben, it says just 2023. So I'm kind of holding out hope that this is a filler, and then when the Warriors return, she comes back home to the Warriors. But she's a very handy player. Plays fullback, I believe. Don't quote me on it. But the Raiders also announced that they signed Holly Mae Dodd, who has been playing in the English Super League. And then there was some news today that Kira Dibb has signed 2 years to join the Cowboys. Obviously played for the Warriors during that COVID campaign. But what's your takes on all of those signings that I just threw at you?
I think the standout one there is obviously Tonagato. He's one of the best players in the NRLW, so that's a massive one for the Sharks. So it would be cool to see Mackenzie Wickie. If and when the NRLW Warriors team comes back, see a father-daughter for the club kind of combo. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I believe they're still penciled in for 2025 as I think the desired first year back in the Warriors for NRLW. But we'll see. Yeah, it'll be good. I know they're just focused on developing players here. But we'll go into casualty ward. There's a couple.
I guess late or recently breaking on Fox is that the signing of Haas. Rugby Australia is after Haas apparently.
Yeah.
So as well.
Yeah, I had that. It's just a rumor, and like Mark said, the Aussie Union is trying to get everybody at the moment. So, and I think a lot of player agents are going to be playing this as a good bargaining chip to get a bit more money in their pocket and their players' pocket. If you're saying like for Haas, if the Broncos really want him, they're going to add a couple more zeros to keep him so he doesn't potentially go to Union.
Wherever he ends up, it's going to be a very good payday.
Yeah, definitely. So, casualty ward now. Bulldogs, Richie. They're running out of players. They're running out of players to get injured, to be honest. I don't know how this is happening. They've got Jacob Carraz is going to miss 3 weeks after getting a grade 2 MCL. And they look certain. I didn't check the team name to see if he's in there, but Jake Averillo has injured his knee. Do you know if he was named this week, Richie?
I don't think he was named.
Hold on.
I'd have to double check that.
I'm double checking right now. So there were also injuries to Andrew Davey, who injured his finger, and Braden Burns injured his foot, which means the Bulldogs now have a casualty ward of their own of 10 players. Jake Averillo has been named.
Oh, yes.
So we can take it back to 9. 9 is still bad. I think the Warriors and a couple of other teams, because I looked at the whole breakdown, I think there's like 2 or 3 teams, Warriors being one of them, that have 7. But 9, when you've got a squad of, at best you can have 30, it's making things tough for the Bulldogs, which is very unfortunate. And it's not like they're just losing all the young guys. They're losing some decent key players in there too. So what's your take on the poor old Bulldogs?
Yeah, Carraz is a massive one because he's been playing the house down. They already
Yeah.
lost Josh Adokar on the other side of the field, so they're going to be rolling out some pretty inexperienced guys on the flanks, already running with a pretty inexperienced pack. They're almost running out with their New South Wales Cup side.
Yeah, so I'm looking. Sorry, I'm looking. Their wingers are Declan Casey and Braden Burns, so we can take it down to 8. So it's not that bad. It's only one more than us. But yeah, so their back three are Haynes Perham, Declan Casey, and Braden Burns, which isn't the greatest back three. And then they still got Burton though, at least. And Andrew Davies been named on the bench, so they're at 7. So what are they complaining about? They got the same amount of injuries as the Warriors. Mark said 6.
Whether or not all of those guys make it to game day and actually make it out on the field.
Yeah, and true, it is 6 because one of the players that was named on it is playing this week. So it's it's unfortunate. Injuries do happen. It's just for some reason some of the teams that sit at the top of the ladder get these lucky runs. You look at the Panthers. The Panthers have been very fortunate the last few years to not lose a lot of players. You still got guys like the Storm without Pappenhausen. And if they need a prop, Brad's the man. Full disclosure, before the Warriors even existed, I was a Bulldogs man, so I'd happily go play for the Doggies. I'd be added to the casualty board very quickly, though. So I don't know if it would help them, but they could pay me minimum wage. I'll gladly do it.
Or the judiciary.
Yeah, it'd be one of these new sections I would be in. As long as they would allow me to keep doing the show, obviously. But yeah, so
we don't recognise the NRL as an authority. We're independent, so they can ban you for as much as you like, and we'll still have you on.
Yeah. And then the last really big news for injuries was Jason Tomalolo. He's looking at around 6 weeks. He's been booked in for surgery on his knee. So I guess they decided that him trying to soldier through his little knock wasn't going to do it, especially with how they've been performing. But yeah, what do you think about the Cowboys? The Cowboys really need him, but you need him at 100%.
You do need him at 100%. It is, regardless, it is a massive blow because even with him there, they haven't been travelling well, and they're low on troops as well. They were missing quite a lot of middles on the weekend, and we saw Granville running out at prop. So it's not the ideal situation for the Cowboys, but they want the big man running at 100%, so he's at his best.
Yeah. So yeah, hopefully we see a decline in some of these injuries because it feels like it's the largest page in my little slides here most weeks because there's so many injuries. But we'll move to Naughty Boy Corner, which has actually got up a bit, which has made me a bit happy because we only had one last week. We've got 4 players that are suspended this week, Richie. Tui, I always get his right.
Kamika.
He's got 2 weeks for grade 2 dangerous contact. Raymond Tui Malo Vainga from the Sea Eagles has got 2 weeks for a grade 2 shoulder charge. Kenny Bromwich has got a week for a grade 2 dangerous contact. And Nat Butcher, I believe he's got a week. It was a grade 2 dangerous contact. I was waiting on the news on if he was fighting it or not. But it was great news seeing that Tui was going to be out this week, and then I saw that Nelson was back. So it's
typical.
But you think any of those guys were a bit hard done by? I thought Kenny Brown was stupid. It was ridiculous.
It's hard to argue with any of those too much. Probably says more about me and probably you too that I actually enjoyed watching a few of those. But hard to argue though.
Yeah. And Butcher did enter a guilty plea, so he is out for 1 week.
Yeah.
It is you gotta behave, these boys. They're not. But at least no Warriors were in trouble. I know it looked like we might have had something with Chance for a shoulder charge, but that was
nothing in that.
not taken further. So
Yeah.
that was good. So we may as well jump into the round that was, starting with the Rabbitohs defeating the Dolphins 36-14. If you want to give us the rundown.
Yep, you bet. So it was 6 tries to 3. Campbell Graham with 2. He's playing the house down. Cody Walker, so was he. Isaiah Tass, Latrell Mitchell, and Alex Johnston with the tries. 2 tries to the Dolphins, former Warrior Ewan Aitken and Jeremy Marshall-King, who's also going good guns. What'd you make of that one, Brad?
Yeah, I've got my notes here. South finally got the errors down to single digits, which is what I've only been asking for since the start of the season, basically. And when that happens, they're hard to stop. They have threats all over the park, and when the passes stick, the points flow, which is what we saw here. What was your take on the Bunnies?
Yeah, slow start, but really poured it on in the second, kind of like they did when they played the Bulldogs recently. But in the second half there, they showed what they can do when it all clicks.
Yeah, and your thoughts on the Dolphins?
Impressive in the first half. Looked like they were really going to make a game of it. The Kenny Bromwich sin-bin really hurt them badly. I think the Rabbitohs scored 3 tries while he was in the sin-bin, so that kind of derailed their chances there in the second half.
Yeah, and I've kind of said the same. They were just too ill-disciplined. They had an 8-2 penalty count, and they're really missing those key players. Nick Karima, I still don't think is Haas material, and Katoa still lacks the experience. So, it's kind of what we were saying could happen to the Dolphins if they lost some key players, and that's unfortunately what we're seeing now. Who was your player that stood out?
I threw down Cody Walker. I kind of knew you had Latrell Mitchell, but yeah, Cody's been a standout the past few weeks, and we sort of said Cody and Latrell had a bit of a slow start to the year. It's no surprise now that these two are turning up that the Rabbitohs are starting to throw some nice big scores on the board.
Yeah, and as you said, I went with the Latrell, kind of just similar to what I said last week. You know, he's getting himself involved a bit more, and his goal kicking has been really good. He missed 1. He had 7 kicks, including the penalty, and he got 6 of them. Yeah. So that's kind of what you need. So, hopefully for the Rabbitohs, those 2 players we've mentioned actually stay in this kind of consistency that they're in right now, because when they're on, they're very hard to stop. So we'll go to the next game. Sharks defeating the Roosters 22-12.
Yep. It was 4 tries to 2. Matt Moylan, Ronaldo Mulitalo, Brayley, and Brighton Nakora with the 4 tries for the Sharks. 2 tries for the Roosters, Egan Butcher and Brandon Smith. It was the battle of our premiership winner tips, Brad. Your pick coming out on top. Yeah,
and as you mentioned during the week, the Sharks are my pick to win that, but I predicted the Roosters would win this match. You said the Roosters will go all the way, and you picked the Sharks. So it's good to see we're backing our minor premiers predictions. But yeah, it wasn't the Sharks' best night out, if we can be honest here. They made heaps of errors, but their attack is dangerous. So when they're patient, the points come. They just got, threats. So even when it looks like they're in trouble, they still find a way to get points on the board. But what did you think about the Sharks?
I thought that they got their defense sorted this week. They did an outstanding job holding a strong attacking team like the Roosters to just 12. Roosters kind of didn't help themselves as well, but we saw the Sharks concede a lot of points against the Warriors. So, and I said then, that if they get the defense right, they can take out the best of the best, and it was a good win for them.
Yeah, and your thought on the Roosters?
Discipline. It's killing them. They lost 3 to the Sin-bin this game, 2 in the last 10 minutes. So they simply need to stop getting players sent to the bin and losing penalty counts if they want to string some wins together and make my preseason prediction look half decent.
I kind of said the same. They were their own worst enemies. 3 Sin-bins almost guarantees a loss. They just need an attitude adjustment. If they want to get up the ladder, they need to sort that out. Everything else is fine. But yeah, you just can't have that many players be that ill-disciplined. But your player that stood out, I think we got the same one this week.
Yeah. I see I typed it out wrong and wrote Nacho Hines on my notes. So, yeah, Nico Hines.
Nocco. Yeah, he was great again. I feel like you can almost pencil him in for every game before the game's even played.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, eh?
Yeah. Do you think, going a little bit off tangent, I know because we got heaps of time. We're heaps of time here. Do you think he gets a call up to Origin this year?
I think he's every chance. I think it's aided by Jackie Whiten calling time on his rep career. I think there's a nice number 14 spot waiting. If they would decide to keep their Penrith halves combo, I would chuck Nico on the bench. Covers a few different positions there and one of the form players of the comp the past couple of years. So why wouldn't you? It'd be a waste not to pick him.
I'd have him in the halves myself, but
so would I. Yeah, personally, I'd be starting him, but
I'd have him in Cleary. But I don't mind seeing you guys. Yeah, someone merely had said the Warriors proved that wrong. Remember the Sharks game last year? 1 send off, 1 sin bin, and we still lost.
I'd rather not remember that one.
Yeah, that's true. But the Warriors were a different team last year that would let things like that happen. The Roosters shouldn't. But yeah, next game, Friday. Seagulls Storm. Seagulls winning 18-8.
Yep, Battle of Brookie. It was only 2 tries to 1. Tom Trebojevic and Lachlan Croker for Manly, and Will Warbrick, the 1 try for the Storm. 2 conversions for DCE, 3 penalties for DCE, and a few sin bins. Tui Malo Vainga, Tui Kamikamica, Justin Olam.
And this spoilers for a little bit later. This was the only game Simon got wrong in his picks. Game we all got wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, still not a polished performance from Manly. But with big efforts from DC and Tommy Turbo, it just seems to get this side across the line. Happy to see Manly do it. But what were your take on Manly?
Probably not as slick as we see them at times, but they seem fired up and wanting to show aggression at home. And I think that was just the ticket. It did a good job of disrupting anything Melbourne was trying to do.
Yeah, and your thoughts on Melbourne?
I think it's been hard for them to. They haven't been able to put the same spine out week on week, and again with Meany out, having to reshuffle their spine, I think it's hurting their flow. They did look good the past couple of weeks before this, but I think it's tough when you're reshuffling your spine all the time. We saw them fall off.
Warriors have been doing that all year, mate.
We're special, mate.
But I've put it was very unstorm-like again, full of errors and penalties, and they looked out of sync, which is going with that spine that you mentioned. Just in time for their Anzac Day bounce back, It's unfortunate. I feel like all these big tests for the Warriors, all these teams seem to be coming in off a loss. Who was your player that stood out?
I knew you were going to put DCE. I was going to put Tommy Turbo, but I put Olukuwatu. If nothing else, for his hit on Justin Olam. Just love beautiful. The aggression. This guy is scary, man. I think he's got to be somewhere in the discussions for Origin selection as well, or like on the fringes at least. He's just intimidating. Love watching him play.
Great pick. I've gone with DCE. I thought he, kicking, he kicked well. He just was directing the team, and he always seems to lead this team into some good things when he's in the right form. And I feel like I had to pick a half since I gave you crap about picking halves all the time. So Yeah, there should be standoff t-shirts. You definitely buy one. I tried to get a t-shirt thing lined up and I can't get it. They don't like me, so I'm still working on it. So give me time, Nick. I'm working on it. Next game, probably the only game that mattered. Warriors defeating the Cowboys 22-14.
Yes, fantastic result. It was 4-3 for the Warriors. Adam Fanor-Blake, Ed Cossey, Josh Curran, and Dylan Walker. 3 tries for the Cowboys. Murray Taulangi, Ruben Cotter, and Val Holmes. What do you think of this one, Brad? You were there. How was it?
Yeah, it was tough to watch, to be honest. The Warriors were giving away so many 6 agains, were dropping the ball. But that grit that we've been talking about all year was on form again with some strong defensive patches. It felt at moments that they were camped on their own try line forever. And you're like, the Cowboys have got to get through at some point, but they just didn't. So fully commending the Warriors there. The wind was horrible, as you guys kept reminding me, because I kept telling you guys during the game, there's no wind. Don't know what you're talking about. The wind's gone. And then the wind would come back. And it was blowing from, north to south, east to west. It changed all the time, which we saw with those conversions. It wasn't the greatest night for Sean. Horrible night for Valentine. But very happy to see the Warriors win again. I said it in my review, it was a must win with the games coming up in the next 3 weeks. They couldn't go into Anzac Day on a loss. So very happy to see them do it. But what was your take on the Warriors?
I thought, obviously, we definitely made it hard on ourselves with our errors and infringements as well. What I did like, on the positive side of things, our defense looked back on track this week, and we turned away a lot of Cowboys attacking raids. They seemed to have a lot of ball there for large periods of the game, and we kept turning them away. So I was very happy with that, and obviously just getting the result. With all our injuries, it's a big result.
Yeah, a lot of injuries, a lot of key players still out, and a tough team that they had to face. And did it well. But your take on the Cowboys?
They definitely looked out of sync and affected by injuries, especially in the pack, having to play Granville up front, and it's definitely not ideal. They're already running with Cotter in the middle, so they're missing some punch there. I mean, Cotter obviously goes hard all day, and they're just not quite clicking, Brad. Not sure what the problem is there.
Yeah, I know we're talking about their lineup and they're undervalued, but if you go player to player, I still think they had an edge over the Warriors just on paper. I know they had Jake Granville in the front row, but we had Jazz. Jazz is a much tougher player than Granville. Granville's still a tough little bugger. Yeah. But the Cowboys should have won this match. I don't understand how they came away with a loss. They spent so much time in the Warriors' red zone, but they just can't build cohesion. And they need a lot of work if they want to be a finals team again. They're playing now how everyone predicted they would be last year.
Yeah.
This is the Cowboys everyone expected last year. So I don't want to be that guy, but maybe that last year was just out of the blue anomaly. And hopefully that's not what we talk about next year when it comes to the Warriors. But I don't know. There's something not working at the Cowboys again. They've definitely taken a step back. But who was your player to stand out?
I went with Dylan Walker, and he was selected in a position where we had a key injury with Tamari Martin out. But it just shows, we seem to have that next man up mentality, and we may have lost his impact off the bench, but what a guy to put in at 6 alongside SJ, and I think he obviously took his opportunity to grab a nice try, but he was very strong defensively too. He had Jeremiah Nanai running at him most of the night, and he just kept turning him away and bringing him down. I thought he was really good.
Yeah, I thought he had a great game. A bit patchy at the start when he was trying to find his groove, but then once he got into it, he was fine. But Mikey's on my page because my player, I picked Marcelo Montoya. I just thought he was great. He got moved to center. It's not like he's never played it before. He's even played it for the Warriors, but
Yeah.
I thought he was great. And that try he set up for Kossi came
good.
out of nowhere. It was a
So
messy
good.
pass out the back. He got it, just ran straight, fended everybody that was around him. I thought he was going to fend Kossi at one point. And then, had the vision to, just flick it to Kossi instead of trying to be a hero on his own. Credit needs to go to Kossi there too for changing his line and making sure he was on the inside.
Yeah.
Instead of just staying out. And thought it was a great effort from Montoya, and I'm happy for him to stay in the centers at the moment because Kossi hasn't done anything wrong to deserve to be dropped. DCE, he was a bit iffy in this game, but it was his first game back. So
Did you
I'm
say
happy.
DCE?
DC, DWZ. There's too many abbreviations. Sorry. I thought Dallin was a bit patchy, but he's going to get back into the groove. I feel like it strengthens them instead of weakening them by taking the guy out.
He did get skinned on the outside by Murray Taulagi a few times.
Talangi's a quality player, though. It's not like he was getting.
No, I think it's just down to him being short of game time. So I think he'll be better for the run and only get better.
I think he was just being clever. He kept giving him the outside edge, and he kept touching the sideline. So it was working. Great game. Very, very proud of getting to leave Mount Smart with yet another win. Still undefeated at home. So that's always good. Tough next home game, though.
Yes.
But we'll move on to the next game. Panthers defeating the Knights 16-15.
Yeah, the game everyone was talking about was a great game. The Knights actually outscored the Panthers in terms of tries, 3-2. Tyson Gamble, Tyson Frizzell, the Tysons getting tries. And Phoenix Crossland and the Panthers had 2 try scorers, Brian Tor and Jamin Salmon, the weak-gutted dog. Hell of a game, Brad. Really exciting. You watch this one live, and I found myself cheering for the Knights, but unfortunately couldn't quite get it done.
Yeah, so talking about the winners first, the Panthers, they looked off pace for a large part of this game, to be honest, but they hung in there, and Clutch Cleary was the hero again. Getting that field goal with a couple of minutes to go to level this game, and then getting the match winner not long after Golden Point started. He's got ice in his veins, and when he's on like that, you can't give him any chances, which is what Fitzgibbon tried to stop. But what was your take on the Panthers?
Yeah, very similar to you. I thought not quite playing to their normal A+ standard, but they found a way to win, which they so often do. It doesn't matter how you win them, as long as you pick up the 2 points. 2 points all the same. So just shows what a class team they are to be. Not at their best. The other team probably playing as well as they could have possibly played, and they still come away with the win.
Yeah. So your thoughts on the Knights?
I thought they were spirited, really spirited. In front of a very vocal home crowd. I thought the crowd was fantastic. Strong first half. They took their opportunities, and they earned to lead, which they defended really well for the most part. But a couple of errors and penalties late in the game allowed the Panthers to creep back in it and then steal it.
Yeah, I've got they'll be disappointed in losing here. Irony, every team's disappointed when they lose. But I thought it was a really solid performance from them. A bit of fine-tuning. Paul, if Miller was a bit more accurate with his boot, we'd probably be talking about a different story here. But I think a bit of fine-tuning, they'll be a troublesome team. And I still think they're a better team without Ponga. And Ponga's back this week, so you watch, they'll probably go backwards against the Cowboys. Who was your player? It's a bit hard to predict who your player might be for this game, Richie.
You got to put Cleary for the clutch moments.
Yeah.
They may not have been at their best, but 2 field goals, just clutch, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Same. He's just too good. Next game, last game on Saturday, Broncos just scraping through against the Titans, beating them 43-26. I'll give you a bit of time to go through the score sheet here.
Yep, was 7 tries to 4. Jordan Ricky, Herbie Farnworth, Reece Walsh, Jesse Arthurs, Kurt Capewell, Ezra Mam, and Selwyn Cobbo. So they spread their tries around. 4 tries for the Titans. Philip Sami, Khan Pereira got 2, and Cruz Leeming grabbed a try. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I thought the Broncos looked a little exposed at points, but when they spot an opening, they bust it wide. They got the 4 tries in quick succession in the second half that sealed the deal, kind of like what we saw, I think it was when they played the Dragons, where they just turned a switch and they were just unstoppable. They do have a good mix of simple footy with X Factor, which is a dangerous mix. And like Nick said in the comments, Kevy's halftime speeches must be legendary. Yeah, I think the Titans looked the better team in that first half. But yeah, Broncos are just a class above right now. What was your thoughts on the Broncos?
Yeah, I thought they were under the pump early in the game. They really were. They got a big momentum swing where they scored back-to-back tries. I think just before and after halftime, they had Titans attacking kicks sort of deflected, and then Broncos take it all the way and score. That really swung the momentum, and then Big Tino's sin binning really helped the Broncos seal the deal.
Yeah. And your thoughts on the Titans?
I thought they were really strong in the first half. They looked the better team, no doubt about it. They just couldn't sustain the effort for the 480, especially like I said with Tino Malawi getting sin binned, and then before that conceding those 2 back-to-back tries. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, and Broncos took over from there. Yeah,
I had the same really. They were in the fight, but I thought they mentally switched off for a stretch in that second half, which is where the Broncos ran away. Tino, didn't help. He even said it in the post-match, saying that it was basically his fault they lost because he went off. They still need serious work on their defense. It constantly lets them down. You go up against the Broncos, you can't do the whole we'll just score more tries than you mentality, because it's not going to work, because the Broncos will always score more. Your player to stand out?
Not often I pick someone off the losing team, but Moe Forueka, I thought it was really, really good. I think in the first half he had, I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but it was between 15 and 20 runs and I think nearly 150 meters in the first half alone, and just felt like the commentators were saying his name every few seconds. So I thought he was really good. I'll show some front row love for you, Brad.
Yeah, I'm continuing the front row love, going with Payne Haas again. Thought he was just dominant in the middle for the Broncos, and he churns out numbers that I wish we would have a couple more front rowers in the Warriors that could do numbers like Payne. Be amazing. But thought it was another great night for him. Great effort. Now we go into Sunday, which wasn't the greatest when it comes to footy. Richie, the Raiders defeating the Dragons 20-14.
Yeah, it was close. I was ready to crow if the Dragons won because I tipped the Dragons. Wasn't to be. 3 tries apiece for the Raiders: Sebastian Chris, Matt Timoko, and Hudson Young. 3 tries for the Dragons: Tautau Monga, Matthew Fengai, and Tautau Monga grabbed second one. So it was goal kicking.
Yeah,
Jared Croker, the man in the moment. He's back in a big way, and that was the difference.
Yeah, I got it was a poor game from both sides, but credit to the Raiders for nailing their kicks, which was the difference, as you said. Wasn't a performance to really be proud of, but take the win because you need them right now. Dreadful game to watch. But what was your take on the Raiders?
Yeah, similar, mate. They'll be happy to walk away with the 2 points at home, but clearly a messy effort, which won't cut it against stronger opposition. Yeah.
And your thoughts on the Dragons?
They didn't play well. They could have come away winners in Canberra, which would have been a great result. But, like last week in the game, but couldn't close it out at the end.
Yeah, I thought they just looked dreadful, and they were clunky. Couldn't hit a conversion to save their lives. Could honestly be a game they were letting slip towards the back end of the season. If they are pushing for the top 8 at any point, this might be the one that bites them. But who was your player?
Like we said, messy game, hard to pick someone that was really outstanding, but I thought Hudson Young was quite good, and in the key moment when the game was on the line, he came up with the big play of the strip when the Dragons had the ball, and then he ran 70, 80 meters to score, showed good pace. Even though I think it was borderline, I think that was a borderline strip. I know the players dropped off, but the Dragons player was on his knees, and I almost thought tackle was completed. But hey, either way, big play, big play.
And he was smart. He got sin-binned in the final minute of the game, so it didn't really affect his team too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, my player, I cheated. I just went with Jared Croker. They won because of the kicks. He got 100% on his kicking. So he was the difference in the end. And great to see. Still find it hard to believe that they didn't have him in the team last year. But
is that the second week in a row? Picked him.
Yep. Second week in a row. I picked him. Yeah. Could still be nostalgia dragging me. But last game, Eels defeating the Bulldogs 30-4. If you want to give us that rundown, Richie.
Yep, 5-1 for the Eels. Will Penasini, Micah Sevo, Mitchell Moses, Regan Campbell-Gillard, and Micah Sevo grabbed a second, not long from full time. Only the one try for the Doggies, Paul Alamodi. Feel sorry for the Dogs, Brad.
Yeah. I just got the Eels needed to win convincingly against the injury-hit Bulldogs, and they did it. RCG dominated the middle, and Gutherson was linking well with Mitchell. If they keep at this level, then they are a threat. It's just, as I say every week, consistency is the Eels' problem. The team that put 26 points on the Bulldogs could score next to nothing this week and look like a completely different team. But what's your take on the Eels?
Yeah, very similar. I said a win was expected for the Eels given the injury crisis the Dogs are facing. They got the job done and with a good margin as well, but it's hard to gauge what the Eels will take from that game. Such is the level that the Dogs have depleted their it's hard to get a read on what they take from that because, like you say, coming up against better opposition won't be the case.
Yeah, and your thoughts on the Bulldogs?
Sorry, Jack. I do feel sorry for them, mate. It's hard to expect a lot from a team already missing Adokar, Kikau, Avarillo, Braden Burns, Luke Thompson, Franklin Pele, Andrew Davey, Fa'amanu Brown, and then losing their best player, Karaz, who's been their best player for most of the year during the game. What do you do? They were running with most of their New South Wales Cup side.
Yeah. I kind of done the same thing without feeling sorry for them. I just said they're missing too much firepower, and it was an uphill battle for them all night. Going to be a tough stretch for them until they get some troops back. As simple as that.
I only feel sorry for them because it's the Doggies. Don't get me wrong, Jacko. If this was like the Roosters or the Storm, I'd be loving it.
Yeah, and your player that stood out?
King Gutho. Gutherson was outstanding. Ate up heaps of Burton bombs. Looked dangerous all night. Why are the Eels looking for another fullback or outside back?
It's ridiculous. Yeah, I picked him as well. The fact that they see him at fullback as their weak link is ridiculous. But thought he was great again. Not a man crush. He's just a good player. Paul, get off that, eh? That was round 7. So what's first? Is it the ladder, Paul? Yep, ladder. So I'll do the top 8 this week. You do the bottom 9. So first still is Brisbane Broncos, Penrith a 2nd, Warriors a 3rd, Manly a 4th, Rabbitohs a 5th, Cronulla a 6th, Melbourne a 7th, and Dolphins 8.
Yep, and the bottom half of the table goes like this. The Roosters in 9th, Gold Coast Titans in 10th, Newcastle in 11th. They've dropped to 11th. Parramatta have gone up to 12th. St. George Illawarra 13th. Canberra 14th. Bulldogs 15th. North Queensland 16th. West Tigers got off the mark with the bye, but they're last place.
They've got points now, though, mate.
They do have points in it. All the way down to 10th, Gold Coast, 6th, 5th, number 5 through 10, all on 8 points. So it's nice little log jam going on there.
Yeah, definitely. And I humble brag, but the team I predicted to be minor premiers are at least in the top 8, unlike yours. So,
But like I just said, there's sort of picking immortality for you. The team I thought might come top are actually in the top half. Wow!
Yeah, exactly. It's what happens. So yeah, great ladder. Great to see the Warriors still up there.
Yeah.
If we want to talk about the picks, have you got that pick for us, Paul, of our tips from last week? There we go. So as I said in our review, Simon only got one game wrong with the Storm
pulling away
down. But he is 7 from 8, leading us with 35 out of 56. Richie got 6 out of 8 and is sitting second, 32 out of 56. And then I'm at the bottom. I got 6 out of 8 too, and I'm 30 out of 56.
Yeah, I like him better than 50%, guys. I like you.
Yeah.
You guys are scraping it.
It is
I'll
what
place
it is.
time in here. I know he's that kind of that kind of person.
I won by that much last year that I want to give you guys a chance. So I'm having my second win later on in the season. Watch the space.
We'll see.
So yeah, that was the round. So we may as well go into questions. I think you got a couple, did you?
I've got a surprise for you. So while you've all been chatting away, I've done a quick. Someone said that he would wear. He would have. He'd like some merch, so I've set up a t-shirt store. In the last few minutes, so there we go. So
look at you go.
So yeah, so I will. I'll throw that link in the in the old chat. I've got no idea how the cash comes to us or if we make anything off it, but hey, you can have a t-shirt with our logo on if you want. That's just throwing the link in the chat. No idea if how good this store is. I'll be honest, but yeah, thought I'd just give it a go. So there you go, folks. At your own peril.
And I'm still fighting the big men at Redbubble to try to get an account since they suspended the one I tried. So I'll keep working on another one.
I expect to see Brad wearing one of those standoff ones in the next couple of weeks now.
Oh, man.
How long does it take to get to you?
It says 3 days, so which is 3 to 5 working days. Printed in New Zealand, and free shipping New Zealand if you buy over $200 worth. So that's an awful lot of t-shirts to get over $200 worth.
I'm not buying $200 worth of t-shirts. Right. So questions. You're making us faff about, Paul.
Oh, I am, absolutely. It's all fun. So I think we've had this story before, but Nicholas wants to know, Brad. Richie. Why did you choose New South Wales?
There's a couple of reasons. A lot of the players I liked when I was a little one, before the Warriors came about, were New South Wales players. Andrew Eddinghausen, Brad Clyde, Harrigan, guys like that. So I just found I leaned towards New South Wales. The junior footy team I used to play for used to wear light blue, so that kind of I aligned with that as well. Yeah.
And no one gives a damn as to why Brad supports the Maroons, so we'll skip past that. But Bjorn is asking you, Brad, what makes you happier, a Warriors win or a Dragons loss?
Warriors win. If I can get both like we did in the week just gone, it's even better. But yeah, Warriors win. Happiest if it's the Warriors beating the Dragons. Then it's
just be careful around there. Yeah. Warriors beating the Dragons at Mount Smart. Don't go near Brad. He might give you a bear hug and squash you to death. Question for both of you: should the NRL alternate the Anzac Day game?
Yes. Yes.
I have the reason why they don't, but yeah, I think they do. I think they should, but it might have even been on Ruin Hammer's show, or it was some show.
Just quickly, for those of you on the podcast, basically, also should it be hosted in Melbourne one year and Auckland the following year? Obviously, at Eden Park.
Yeah, not at Eden Park, but if it's at Eden Park, they may as well do it in Melbourne. But yeah, the Cameron Jules explained it that before, when they're creating the draw, every team gets a couple of musts that they get to go to the NRL going, this is what we want. And Melbourne every year say we want the Anzac game in Melbourne because it's their biggest seller. That's their breadwinner. I know the NRL is the only one that can come in and say, well, tough shit, you have to alternate this. But they never will, because it's a big winner for Melbourne. It's a big viewer in Melbourne. So that it helps them out in the long run for the NRL as well. Nick said it was definitely on Ruin Hammer's Cameron George interview. So I knew I saw it somewhere. But that's why it doesn't alternate. I think it's rubbish. It should alternate because it's an Anzac match. So having an Anzac match consistently in Australia kind of defeats the purpose of it being an annual Anzac game, But like Jacko said, they'll never agree. I too thought that for 1 year it would be here, because after the COVID and doing the whole, the Warriors is so important to us, rah rah rah. But no.
Let's be honest. That's turned into what it was, which was just a whole bunch of hot air. If it wasn't hot air, every team would have hosted their home game against the Warriors in New Zealand, around New Zealand, and would have really given back to the team. But they've decided not to. So there you go. Good to see that the Warriors Storm game on Anzac Day will be free to air on TV3 over here in New Zealand.
Yeah, which is great to see. I know they did a couple other games. I think the Origin, one of the Origin games, free to air this year too. I think it is. But yeah, it's good to see.
And it's not on Prime, which is a Sky thing. But there you go.
Yeah, no, it's a deal they got with TV3 for something. But yeah, at least the Warriors are playing in a position where people might actually watch it on TV3.
Yep. Anyone else happening with big Moamalo at Titans?
Malo.
Is he still coming back from injury?
I think he is still coming back from injury, but it's interesting. I'm just looking. Breaking news. The Hammers just signed a deal to the end of 2027 with the Dolphins. Nice. FYI. It just popped up when I went onto the website.
Oh, good. I'm glad that's relevant to the question. Well done, Brad. Sorry, Jack.
It's not relevant to the question, but it's relevant to the...
What were your thoughts?
It's a big deal.
What were your thoughts on the Cowboys players jumping in the air when SJ was trying to take his last shot goal? Is that bad sportsmanship?
Yeah, it rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. I think the Sharks players did it to him too when he was lining up the game-winning penalty against the Sharks. So
you wusses.
Well,
there's nothing wrong with it.
It's a penalty. It's not like a conversion. We should get a free shot from a penalty.
We got a free shot anyway.
They've infringed. Yeah, a distracted free shot.
It's all fine. You guys are just wusses. And looking at the injury chart on the NRL website, Mamalo's not even on it. Oh, okay. So as far as the website's concerned, he's fit. So I don't know. I guess the Titans just think they're going so well that the guy that they asked to get straight away isn't needed.
Well, Khan Pereira and
Khan Pereira is playing really well, and so is Philip Sami. So
Sami's both playing really well.
In their defence, their wingers are playing really well. But then why get a winger urgently if you're not going to use them? I don't get it. But any other questions for everyone, Paul? Or?
No, just to point out that the first Origin game is free to air on 3 as well.
Yeah, cool. My one's a bit quicker, so I'll go with my one first, Richie. The Warriors have 4 players off contract this year: Sean Johnson, Marcelo Montoya, Adam Pompey, and Bailey Sirenen. Who would you sign, and who would you be happy to let go, if any?
The first 2, Sean Johnson, Marcelo Montoya, I would want to re-sign them, at least. Sean, it was looking dodgy. If you take this year out of the equation and look on last year's form, a lot of people saying maybe he should retire, but I think he's earned another go around. So I'd really like to see Sean and Marcelo get another contract. Even Pompey, I think, has shown glimpses this year where I think, why not, Brad's smirking, why not persist with him for a little while? He's got downsides, but he's shown some good upsides lately. Bailey Cernan, I could take or leave, but he's shown some good sort of utility value. Keep them all.
Yeah. To be honest, at the start of the year, I would have said Montoya is the only one. And Paul's leaving us to fill his alcoholic desires while we're going here. So, at the start of the season, it would have just been Montoya. I would have said Pompey, Bailey, get rid of them. Sean, watch Sean really. Unless Sean's amazing, there's no point. He has been amazing. If he wants to go on another year, I don't see why you wouldn't. Montoya's a must. Pompey, I feel like it's an abusive relationship between me and him. Everything in my heart is telling me I need to let him go, but he keeps doing little things here and there. It's like he's a good guy and all. I'll give him another chance. That's how I feel with him at the moment. He can do some amazing things. Every week he's getting a little bit better at doing it for longer periods. So I'd say at the moment, Valer and Rocco Berry aren't really kicking the door down, to be honest. So keep him. And Bailey Cernan is Mr. Invisible at the best of times for me, but he has been playing well in this utility role. So I'm sure he's a guy you can get nice and cheap. But we've got a lot of good forwards, so you could let him go without it, derailing the team. But your question for me.
So we saw the Warriors beat the Cowboys again on the weekend. It's been quite the fall from grace for the Cowboys this season after a breakout year last year. Where do you think it's gone wrong? And would you write off their playoff chances already?
I think it's still too early to write many teams off from making it. It all depends on how they're going to go. Like if they string some wins together, they're back in it. It's that simple. Where it's gone wrong, I think maybe they surprised everyone last year. No one's taking them for granted when they face them this year. And I think like Paul said, maybe they've figured them out. I think they potentially haven't done enough in the off season to change or improve on what they did last year. So they're going in with the same game plan, and it's not working potentially. It's hard to say. Payton's, he's a switched on individual. I'm sure he will find something. But it's screaming a lot like his first year with them, where they're not really doing anything. And yet Jacko said they're not as fit as last year. That potentially they came into the off season going, we're the top 4 side now, that's where we are, and took it a bit lightly, and they've lost a bit of that hunger potentially, and it has resulted in them not being as fit as they were. They looked gassed in both games they played the Warriors. Watching it live last week, they were out on their feet, which is what Blocker says the Warriors are all the time. But you could tell they were gassed, and you can't be gassed in the NRL because it's just you need to be playing the same way in the first minute as you are in the 80th, and they're just not doing it. And like Mikey said, Warriors are super fit. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But anything else you want to add to that before we move on to the round 8?
Yeah, I think they've been a little unlucky with injuries, but so have a lot of teams. And I think, a couple of the key ingredients from last year, Jeremiah Nanai coming out of nowhere, having a massive impact. I think he's been a bit more quiet this year. Maybe teams are really looking out for him. I know we looked after him really well in the games we played.
Yeah.
The Cowboys. So, I'm not wanting to write them off just yet, though. Like you say, if they get some of their cattle back, they're every chance of going on a run. But,
it's unlikely, but you can't rule it out.
I can't rule it out.
And and Jacko said Peyton's aftermatch presses are a great watch. Yeah, I do like watching his because as much as I love the guy, he's a whiner. If his team loses, he kind of bitches and complains, but he didn't really do that in this one because he had nothing to stand on there for it. But yeah, sometimes he can get a bit whiny. But yeah, no disrespect to him. I love him as a coach, and I'm sure he'll get them back on track. Justin Horro calls them the depressor, the losing team. Yeah, Justin Horro seems to have a real joy in watching the losing team presses every week. He mentioned it on his podcast. Said he doesn't like watching the ones from the team that won. He just likes watching the team that lost. I generally only do that with Ricky Stewart myself. But let's move on to round 8, the Warriors Storm game. We'll talk about first. Playing Anzac Day on Tuesday, night before our show next week. You want to run down the Warriors lineup?
Yes. The Warriors lineup as follows. Number 1, Chance Nickel-Klostad. The wings, DWZ and Ed Cossey. The centers, Marcelo Montoya, Adam Pompey. The halves, Dylan Walker, Sean Johnson. So unchanged backline there. Forward pack, Adam Fenor-Blake, Freddie Lussick, Jas Tavanga, Jackson Ford. Murata Niokore has been named to come back. Tohu Harrison, 13. The interchange is Bailey Siren and Josh Curran. Bunty Arfour, Tom Ale.
Yeah, and the Storm, we've got Nick Meaney at fullback, Will Warbrick and Xavier Coates on the wings, Remus Smith and Justin Olam in the centres, halves of Munster and Hughes. Front row, Nelson Asafa-Solomona is back, unfortunately. Harry Grant at hooker, Christian Welch, the other prop. Trent, how do you say his name, Richie? Loera?
Yeah, something like that. Laero?
Yeah, and Alisi Katoa as the other second rower, Josh King at lock. And then their interchange, they got Bronson Garlick, Alec McDonald, Tom Eisenhuth, and Tarek Sims on the interchange. And as said in the comments, Nelson ripped the Warriors apart in the preseason. I was really hoping he wouldn't be back for this game. Disappointed to see that Wade Egan didn't make it back. I listened to an interview with Webster saying that they could have named him, but they decided another week would be better for his well-being. And in hindsight, I think I said it on a comment on one of my posts saying I'd rather him be there at the back end of the season than trying to push him for the Anzac game and then we lose him. So, and the interchange is what I would pick. I like that we don't have Tane in there to not be used. What's your take on the Warriors lineup and the Storm?
I mean, I like that it hasn't changed a lot. You know, we're performing well, so bringing back Niokore is an obvious one, which is good. And I think the balance of the side's a bit better this week, having him back. Like you say, not having Tuapiki off the bench just to be wasted. The Storm side is worrying. Obviously, Asafa Solomona back and Nick Meaney back as well. So back to looking dangerous again.
Yeah, dangerous team. So I've gone with the Storm. I feel like the Warriors could win this one. This could be the one they get, but I think the Storm are just too good at home. And the only difference is I think it's going to be close, which is something that it hasn't been for what feels like forever. So I'm really interested to see how the Warriors fare, but I think the Storm are just going to have the edge in a close one.
Yeah, if I think back to my preseason prediction, one of the ones we did on Ruin Hammer's show was that.
What show? What, there's other shows?
That other show. I talked about this game and I said, I think we'll get close, but it might come down to some rubbish officiating. It was a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I got to back my tip from then. And
so you're picking Storm as well?
I'm picking Storm in a close one.
Yeah. And Simon, we may as well do it here while you're here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is going for the Storm on this one. The big purple machine is going to roll into town. Well, actually, it's home, aren't they? They're at home, so not really rolling into town, but keeping it against. But look, when they've got the biggest crowd at home, they've got to show up for their home team.
Yeah, but yeah, this is going to be the true indicator for how the Warriors actually are, if they can come in and be competitive. Because even 2018, the last year, Paul, they actually made the finals. They were on like a 5-0 run at the start of the year, and then when they got to Anzac Day, they still got pantsed by like 30, 40 points. And that was when they were going well. It just always happens. So if they can go well against here, as I said, I think they can get the win. If they get the win, it's going to be amazing. There's nothing better than picking against the Warriors and being wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be good. But we may as well go on to the rest of the round.
And then, and it's also they've got the Roosters after that. Then the Panthers. It's a serious number. It's a serious run of games before they get the Bulldogs. When I'm sure the Bulldogs have all their players back by then. So yeah.
But yeah, so the rest of the round, if you've got the fixtures there, we'll go into it. First game up, we've got Rabbitohs Panthers. I've gone with the Panthers because they're the Panthers. What say you, Richie?
Yeah, I'm going to go Panthers. I think they'll be a bit disappointed in their performance weekend just gone, so I'm expecting a bit of a rebound.
Yeah, and Simon?
Obviously, Cats eat rabbits. It's a simple one. It's in the logos.
Yeah,
it's
okay. Thankfully, the real Simon doesn't pick with that logic. But yes. Next game up, Eels Broncos. It's Eels won last week, so they're going to lose this week, and they're playing the Broncos. So Broncos for me.
I'm going to go Eels. The Broncos leaving Queensland for first time in an age.
Yeah. I didn't think about that, but yeah, Broncos, bugger it.
Well, look, horses obviously stamp on snakes. It's easy. Oh no, look, Broncos 6
it's
wins,
not a
1 loss.
They're the Eels. It's in the name, Paul.
Eels. Kind of same. They're all slithery. But no, look, Broncos have had a fantastic season so far. Sure, they're on the road, but 6 wins, only 1 loss. Broncos.
Next up, we've got Bulldogs Sharks. I've gone with Sharks because Sharks eat Bulldogs. There you go. I do a Paulism.
That's probably the easiest pick of the week, eh? Sharks.
Question, when will I appear and hold the ball? When I'm asked, I guess. So, yeah, you're going with Sharks as well? And Simon?
Yep, absolutely. When the dog tries to swim across the river, the Shark's going to get him.
Then we got next up Cowboys Knights. I've gone with Knights.
The other one, look, the Bulldogs got no players, so I mean you've got to go with the Sharks, haven't you?
Yeah, brave man to pick the Bulldogs. So next up Cowboys Knights. I've gone with Knights. I think the Cowboys they haven't been going well, and they've lost Jason Taumalolo. They are playing at home, but I think it's going to be a bridge too far. Knights unfortunately do have Ponga back, which will make them worse, but I think they'll still be enough.
I went Knights as well.
What are you guys on? Jeez, they're just going to lasso those guys off their horses, and it's all over. The Cowboys are going to do this one. I'm not quite sure what I'm thinking with this one, to be honest with you, because I mean, Cowboys second bottom of the table, only the Tigers who are winless beneath them, but still, surely at some point the Cowboys are going to turn things around.
I know where Simon's coming from. He's got that confidence of being like 20 points ahead of us.
Well, I also can't believe that the Cowboys are $1.74. The Knights $2.05. So I'm with the TAB here. They're favourites.
Yeah. So I think it's the Knight being at home and Ponga coming back makes the Knights worse. So I think that's all playing into it. Next up is Dolphins Titans. I've gone with the Dolphins. I know I just talked about their halves not being up to scratch, but the Titans can't defend. So if there's one thing the Dolphins do, they know how to score tries through Isako and the hammer.
I'll go the other way.
You're going Titans?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to catch up to you this week.
So confident.
I can feel it.
Dolphins at home. Look, the Dolphins have been the great success story this year so far. Way already ahead of expectations, I think, for what they would achieve in the whole season. So yeah, I'm going Dolphins again. Perhaps I'm part of that. Perhaps I'm on the wagon. Perhaps I've sort of joined the party there a bit too much and smoking something. But yeah, Dolphins.
Yeah, they don't really have a bandwagon. It's like a boat of some kind.
The speedboat. I want the speedboat.
Yeah.
Party boat.
And then the last game on Sunday is Tigers Sea Eagles. I don't see the Tigers getting their first win of the season this week, so I've gone with Sea Eagles.
Yeah, Sea Eagles.
Yeah, go and Sea Eagles, but actually the Tigers are shorter odds than the Bulldogs, so which tells you something when the Tigers haven't won all season. So they're not the rank outside of for the round, which is makes a change.
Yeah, and then we have a couple of days off, and then we have the final two games, which are on Anzac Day, which is Tuesday. First up, we have Roosters Dragons. Roosters, because I'm not picking the Dragons.
Yeah, Roosters.
Roosters. I mean, look, the Dragons might be looking for some roast chicken, but I don't think they're gonna make it in this game.
Yeah, and then the last game, I hate it when it happens like this. The last game of the round is the Warriors, so we have to wait forever, Richie.
Yeah.
But yeah, Storm Warriors, we've already talked about. We've all picked Storm. So looking at it, we've basically all got the same. Well, me and Simon almost got the same, bar the Knights Cowboys. And then you and me, Richie, we're different on the Eels and Titans. So that's two. So I'll probably level with you.
Or not.
I think we'll be level, so I'll still be last. Oh no, I'll get to go to second because of alphabet.
Oh,
I'll
take it
because of alphabet.
Look,
he's making the slide, and hence that's how he decides these kind of things.
We need a bit of tiebreaker.
Well, I've got to get them right first. So yeah, that was the round.
That was the round, but here's the multi that's up there now for the for all the ones we agree on. So all three of us agree. So so Panthers, Sharks, Eagles, Roosters, and Storm. If they all win, $6.86 coming my way, and making up for the losses of the last 2 weekends where you guys all screwed me over with your picks.
We're getting closer though, because the first week you got 2 wrong. Last week you got 1 wrong. So this week it means you'll go from 1 to none. So it's in the bag.
Hang on. What's this? I got 1 wrong. You guys got 1 wrong.
Well, I do a similar multi, but I do it for all 8. So I get it wrong every week. So I think all I'm going to do is, even though I got called a traitor earlier on, I'll probably put a bet on the Warriors to beat the Storm. But yeah, that's it. And so we got Storm and Waz first half tit for tat. Second half we'll dominate the middle and close out an upset.
That'd
really
be great.
hope so.
I would really take that all day.
Ending a decade of recurring nightmares, winning by 4, says Jacko. Mikey's got the Warriors 1-12. So look, lots of love for the Warriors in the chat, and Jacko saying Brad would make a good politician. I'm not so sure about that one.
100%.
Mr. Thug Life, I think he might have some skeletons in that closet that would get brought out by the press. But there we go.
Yeah, I got charmed though, Paul. I could get through any of those skeletons in my closet with a smile, and I'll be fine. But yeah, so Jacko's time to leave because I know we're going long, but we'll do a quick thing on Super League. So cheers for joining us again, Jacko. See you next week. But I got 2 little bits of news before I go through the results. George Williams and Paul Vaughan have signed contract extensions to stay with Warrington. Williams until 2026 and Vaughan until 2025. Great to see. I think George Williams has also announced the captain of England this week as well. And Warrington were handed their first defeat of the year, losing to Wigan, but they remain at the top of the table with Wigan second, Hull KR third, and Catalans fourth. So the results, we had Salford defeating Castleford 14-6, Uddersfield defeating Catalans 26-14, Leeds defeating Hull FC 34-10, Hull KR defeating St Helens 26-14, Wigan defeating Warrington, as I said, 13-6, and then Wakefield, they were hoping to get their first win of the season, but they went down 32-0 to Lee. So disappointing for Wakefield again. Great to see our team Wigan get the win over the undefeated team.
And St Helens losing.
Yeah, and St Helens losing. So this week we have St Helens versus Warrington, Castleford versus Hull KR, Lee versus Leeds, Salford versus Catalans, Hull FC versus Uddersfield, and then Wigan are playing Wakefield. So I don't know if Wakefield's going to get their win this week either. But yeah, any takes on the Super League?
No, I mean, I'll try and catch a couple of the games this week. I never catch them live. I always catch them delayed when I watch them. But I'm just happy to see Wigan winning and St. Helens losing, and looks like it's going to be another good win this weekend. Fingers crossed. I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in and joining us tonight on Standoff with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. For your weekly update on rugby league, remember to tune into our show next week at 8 p.m. here on Facebook or on YouTube, or at your convenience on iHeartRadio or Spotify. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. Cheers for joining me again, Richie. Cheers, Paul, for joining us, doing everything in the background. And good night, everyone.